everybody, Trevor here, and welcome to my very first Q&A video. Before we start this, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me over 6,000 subscribers. It really helps my channel a lot. That's one reason why I decided to make this. The second reason is that I always wanted to make a Q&A video for my channel. Now for this video, I will be answering questions that some of you guys asked first, followed by questions that I decided to make for myself just to make this video a little bit longer. Also, I won't include any questions that are considered personal, like where do you live or what color is your poop, because those are none of your business. In addition, I won't be including questions involving politics because I'd rather keep those things to myself for safety reasons, and I don't want any backlash whatsoever. Now with those rules out of the way, let's start off with question number 1. Have you ever watched Gloom? If so, what do you think? Well, to be honest, I'm not that big into Gloom, but I do remember my sister having some of her merchandise when she was in high school, like a calendar for instance. Your most favorite Thomas book? Well, to be honest, I like the Railway series the best since those are the original Thomas books by the Reverend Wilbur Awdry, as well as his son Christopher Awdry. Most favorite modern kids show besides Bluey? Well, I also like Puppy Dog Pals, which I consider one of my favorites due to the cute designs of the pugs. Can I get a shout out in a video or community post? Maybe, but I'm not going to promise that. Thoughts on Caillou? I don't like Caillou. Caillou's not really my thing anymore. I mean, I used to like that show for some reason when I was a kid, but nowadays, it's worse than I remember. It's almost as bad as Barney the Dinosaur, as well as Little Brown Bear. Which 3 Railway series stories do you wish were adapted during the classic era of Thomas and Friends? Well, for one thing, the small railway engines, which was already adapted into CGI. Secondly, I really wish they've also adapted the Caldy Fell railway engines, that Mountain Engines book from the 1960s. Yeah, I wish they'd done that one too. And I also wish they've done Super Rescue. Super Rescue is also one of my favorite Railway series exclusive stories. What are your thoughts on the Beatles and your favorite Beatles song? Well, for one thing, I like the Beatles song I Want to Hold Your Hand. That's pretty much the first Beatles song I was introduced to when I was a teenager. Secondly, I like the Beatles in general because they're a very good band. They're about as good as the Beach Boys and Elvis and Michael Jackson and many other singers. And another reason why I was interested in the Beatles to begin with was because of Ringo Starr. After all, he was the first narrator of Thomas and Friends back in 1984. And if it wasn't for Ringo Starr's narration, I wouldn't have gotten introduced to the Beatles. Thoughts on the Hornby range? Well, to be honest, it's alright. It's interesting, but I like Bachman better in terms of TV series accuracy, because I always thought the Hornby versions are completely inaccurate. Unless you're counting the Railway series or something, then I can understand. No offense to the UK fans, I just like Bachman better. Have you seen any of the Godzilla movies, and what's your favorite Godzilla movie? I haven't seen any of that, but I do remember the cartoon from the 1970s, which I've grown up with as a kid. Do you have your own headcanon? Well, yes. Like, for example, I like to consider the fan-made episode The Good Old Days to be canon to the TV series, because it shows and explains how Toby got his old branch line back. And when it comes to certain bad episodes of the original TV series, I would rather decanonize Wonky Whistle and most of the bad episodes in the Sharon Miller and New Marl era, as well as certain ones from Big World Big Adventures, because they're wasted potential, in my opinion. Congrats! Do you like puppets? Of course I like puppets. I mean, I've made a video about my favorite Muppet characters, and someday I might do a top 5 video on my favorite Muppet movies, such as The Muppet Christmas Carol. Can you do a review on Playhouse Disney shows? Maybe, but I'm not going to promise that right now. And besides, I've already talked about Bear in the Big Blue House in one of my top 10 videos. Do you remember getting the Toy Story Burger King toys? Yes, I did. I mean, I used to have a pullback RC car, as well as the puppet versions of Woody and Buzz. Hey Trevor, what do you think that the higher-ups at Hasbro are doing right now? Well, I really don't know, because I've heard controversial things about Hasbro recently, like the many layoffs, for instance. Do you have any thoughts on horror themed cartoons besides MLP? No, not really. However, I do like Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron by DreamWorks, which I thought was a really good movie. As for the CGI spin off, it's alright, but I do prefer the 2D animated movie from the early 2000s because that's the movie I grew up with as a kid. And I think that has more heart than the CGI spin off shows. What are your current thoughts on Mattel, Hasbro, and Jakks Pacific? Well, for starters, I don't really know what Jakks Pacific is. Secondly, Hasbro has been good back in the 2010s, but nowadays they haven't done much of a good job lately because of all the layoffs and stuff, and that G5 was a complete failure, unfortunately. As for Mattel, I still think they're a terrible company, even after they've ruined the Thomas brand. But they're still good at making Hot Wheels and Barbie dolls. I can give you that. Are you looking forward to the Larry Boy movie that'll come in 2026? And I replied with, I didn't know there's gonna be a Larry Boy movie. I used to like Larry Boy when I was a kid. And I still kinda do. What do you think of horror movies? Well, in all honesty, I don't like horror stuff in general because of the jump scares and all that other scary shit. But I don't mind horror parodies, especially when people make fun of The Shining and stuff. But the one horror movie I like to make fun of the most is Stephen King's It, because I can't take clowns very seriously. I know a lot of people are afraid of clowns, but to me, they're hilarious compared to spiders. Spiders are a lot scarier because they bite, and some spider bites are more fatal than others. Besides, I prefer family-friendly horror movies, like Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit, Hotel Transylvania, and many, many others. Should Shout Factory release a complete season of Theodore Tugboat on DVD and Blu-ray? And I replied with, we can only hope, fingers crossed. And in all honesty, I would love a complete series of Theater Tugboat on DVD and Blu-ray because we haven't had any new Theater Tugboat DVDs in years, aside from 3 US DVDs from Canada. But that's about it, unfortunately. I mean, seriously, I don't see why Classic Media refused to release any Theater Tugboat episodes onto DVD these days. I mean, many companies tried to get the rights or distribution rights to release Theater Tugboat onto DVD, but Classic Media for some reason refused to sell any rights, which is very stupid of them. I mean, if they can release the Rankin Bass specials on DVD, why couldn't they do the same thing for Theater Tugboat? I mean, Theater Tugboat's a classic for crying out loud. Will you do a top 5 worst Theater Tugboat episodes list? And I reply with no, because I can't really think of any Theater Tugboat episode that's considered terrible. Except maybe a few, but I don't really want to do a video bashing on Theater Tugboat episodes I don't like, especially Theodore the Tattletug. Which 2015 Pixar movie you like more, Inside Out or The Good Dinosaur? And I replied with, I kind of like both. I think they're both great in their own right. Sure, The Good Dinosaur is kind of a ripoff of The Land Before Time, but at least it's trying to be a little bit different. As for Inside Out, I'll give it credit for being original, but I kind of like the second movie better in terms of an antagonist with good intentions. Which 2017 Pixar movie do you like more, Cars 3 or Coco? Coco for sure. Which Sonic movie is your favorite? All the live action movies so far. Which 2020 Pixar movie do you like more, Onward or Soul? Both. Question, what are your opinions on Ralph Breaks the Internet? Well, in my opinion, it's good, but not as good as the first, because it does have its plot holes and flaws. Now, this question involves my fan-made voice cast for Thomas and Friends. How can I do my own on YouTube? Also, love the fan cast. Thank you. Well, for starters, you have to download some video editing software in order to make videos like this. And it costs a lot of money, so you have to pay yearly for the software. Like, for example, I use Adobe Premium Pro 2021, and it cost me around like $100 or $80, or I can't remember, but still, you get my idea. Stephen Lyons asked, why don't you like Cars 2? For me, I'm neutral to it. Well, I don't really hate Cars 2. I just don't like it as much as the first and third movies. At least in terms of Mater being the lead role, as well as the supporting characters and the overall plot. And besides, Cars is supposed to be about racing, not spying. You have any thoughts of I Love Toy Trains by TM Books and Videos? Well, I believe I've watched one of the videos in the past about toy trains going around, particularly Lionel. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen some of those. What would Patrick and Pansy sound like with Emma Tate's voice? Well, for one thing, I think Patrick would sound a lot like Perfect Peter from Horrid Henry. And Pansy, well, she can do her little girl voice as usual, just like any other little girl character that she voiced, especially in Toot the Tiny Tugboat and Bob the Builder. Hey Trevor, I know you love trains, cars, boats, and ships. Do you love buses, trucks, helicopters, and planes? Well, all yes, though I don't like to get seasick or airsick, or even sick on the road. Because after all, bus rides and truck rides can be a bit bouncy sometimes. Can you do your thoughts on the Trevor soapbox race? That sounds familiar. I think I've seen a video about a soapbox race involving Trevor the traction engine going downhill really fast, and I thought that video was pretty cool. Alright, now I'll make up some questions about myself for the rest of this video. So buckle up everyone! Are you going to make a top video on your favorite classic Thomas episodes? Well, I have been getting a ton of requests to do this one for a very long time, and I'm thinking about waiting until my 10-year anniversary this April just to do it. And I may end up splitting this top 35 video into 3 parts just so it's not all in one video. What is your favorite pet? Dogs, obviously, though I do have some respect for other animals too, including cats, horses, and hamsters. Regarding your fan-made Thomas and Friends voice cast video, why did you choose certain ones who have already passed away a long time ago, like George Carlin and Willie Rushton? And why do you want most of the characters to sound British rather than making a variety of different accents? Because for one thing, I wanted to give some of these past voice actors a chance to shine to voice some characters in my own head canon. And besides, I'm very nostalgic for George Carlin, Alec Baldwin, Willie Rushton, and even Michelangelo in some cases. I want to give each voice actor a fair share on who gets to voice who in my own fan fiction. And to answer the second part of the question, the island of Sodor is a British island, not an American island. That's why I want most of the characters to sound British. However, I want certain ones like Rosie, Terrence, Porter, Timothy, Mary, and Philip, and even certain pack members like Brenda to have American accents just to reflect their country of origin as much as possible. That way, the characters in this series would sound more down to earth rather than having a mix of British and American accents, like in Thomas Magic Railroad. Why did you decide to donate certain Thomas toys in the first place? Well, because either A, I hardly care about certain Thomas brands such as my Take Along, Take and Play, and Adventure stock, which is why I donated most of them to charity to make room for something new for my collection. Or B, I don't want to hoard too much Thomas stuff anymore, which is another reason why I gave away certain items just to make room for needs like, say, a new TV screen or a new computer, just to name a couple. Besides, needs are more important than luxuries. But don't worry, guys. I promise that one of my New Year's resolutions is to not donate any more crap, for the most part. And that from now on, I'm only planning on getting something that I actually do want to keep for my Thomas merchandise collection. What inspired you to make YouTube videos? Well, to be quite honest, I do have many inspirations, not just from old school ranters from the late 2000s and early 2010s, but also from famous people like the mysterious Mr. Enter, who was one of my favorite reviewers despite his major flaws here and there with his own videos. I know a lot of people don't like him, and that's totally understandable, but at least he has evolved throughout the years and has gotten better nowadays with his videos, for the most part at least, even though I don't always agree with his opinions, but still, I enjoy watching his stuff nonetheless. Why do you like trains so much? That's an easy one. I love the sounds they make, the way they were designed, and they are pretty fun to ride on. Not to mention that if it wasn't for Thomas the Tank Engine, I wouldn't have been interested in trains to begin with. In fact, I can't imagine my childhood or life without the little blue tank engine himself, and I would like to thank Bert Allcroft for bringing him to America in 1989. Still, she will be missed and will be remembered fondly for bringing the Railway series to television back in 1984. May she rest in peace, by the way. What is your favorite video game of all time? I've already made a top video regarding my favorite gaming franchises, and I'll try to keep it brief here. My number one most favorite and most important video game of all time is Kingdom Hearts, which is a crossover of both Disney and Square Enix properties. And if it wasn't for Kingdom Hearts, I wouldn't have been a loyal Disney fan to begin with, even though I despise modern day Disney with a fiery passion. Who are your favorite Thomas characters and why? Well, some of my favorites include Trevor the Traction Engine, who has the same first name as mine, and of course, Thomas the Tank Engine himself, since he's the main character of the TV series. I also like Duncan because he's a Scotch grump, and his gold and yellow paint suits him very well more than his original red paint from the Railway series. And to be honest, I think it was a great idea to give each of the narrow gauge engines different colors in the show, otherwise, they would look too similar to one another. What is your favorite Thomas movie and why? My most favorite one of all time, in my opinion, would have to be Sora's Legend of Lost Treasure. I'll provide a link about it in the description below just so I don't sound like a broken record. What is your favorite childhood film and why? Again, I'll provide a link to my top 10 favorite childhood films video in the description below in case you want more context behind it. Do you still think Big World Big Adventures is a mixed bag? Yes, I still think it's average. While it may not be as boring as the Sharon Miller era in terms of pacing, but when it comes to writing, characters, and consistency, it's still not as good as season 17 through 21 since that is the true renaissance era for the show. And that's another link I'll provide in the description below in case you want more information on my thoughts on it. I'll ask one more question about myself, then we'll call it a day. What are your thoughts on people misusing the term train, especially on Thomas and Friends? Well, to be frank, I'm not really offended by that because I can understand why some people make this mistake or even overuse this term, but the truth is, a train is something a locomotive pulls or pushes, so they're not exactly the same thing. And I'm gonna end the video right here. Once again, thank you guys for giving me over 6,000 subscribers for my channel. I'm very grateful for that. I also would like to thank you guys for asking me some decent questions, and I hope you've enjoyed this Q&A video of mine. If you have, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to, and click the bell icon to be notified for my latest uploads. For my next video, I'm thinking of doing my 40-second unboxing video for late January, depending on the budget I've earned for my ad revenue from last month. Because for now, I've got better things to save money on, and I'm not always good at keeping promises, especially when it comes to making YouTube videos. This is Trevor Davis signing off, and I hope you all have an excellent day.